Star Trek. Strange New Worlds can't repeat Game of Thrones' final season mistakes. When Game of Thrones ended in 2019, it was supposed to be the conclusion of television's greatest fantasy epic. Instead, it became a case study in how to destroy years of goodwill in a matter of hours. Star Trek. Strange New Worlds, Paramount Plus' crown jewel and arguably the best Star Trek show since The Next Generation, faces a similar danger as it moves toward its later seasons. If it's not careful, it could fall into the same traps that made Game of Thrones' final season so infamous, rushing the story, betraying its characters, and losing sight of what made audiences love it in the first place. Unlike Game of Thrones, Strange New Worlds has the benefit of hindsight. It can learn from Westeros' mistakes before it ventures into its own endgame. Because even though Strange New Worlds is thriving now, every great series faces the same question sooner or later. How do you end something that feels timeless? One, don't rush the story to reach a predefined endpoint. One of the biggest complaints about Game of Thrones' final season was that it tried to cram too much into too few episodes. 6 episodes were never going to be enough to resolve years of intricate political drama and emotional arcs. As a result, storylines that should have felt earned instead came across as abrupt. Daenerys' downfall, Bran's coronation, Jaime's relapse, all felt rushed and hollow. For Strange New Worlds, that danger lies in its connection to Star Trek's existing canon. The show is technically a prequel to the original series, which means we already know how the fates of several key characters play out. Captain Pike's tragic future, Spock's continuing evolution, and even the eventual command of Captain Kirk. But the series must resist the urge to sprint toward those inevitable milestones. The joy of Strange New Worlds lies in the journey, not the destination. We know Pike's end. We know where Spock will go. What we don't know is how they get there, or the emotional cost along the way. If Strange New Worlds rushes that process for the sake of syncing up with TOS timelines, it risks undercutting the rich storytelling that made it special. To stay true to the characters' core motivations. In Game of Thrones, character consistency became a casualty of plot urgency. Daenerys Targaryen's turn from liberator to tyrant could have been an incredible, tragic transformation, but it needed time, nuance, and emotional buildup. Instead, it felt like a switch flipped overnight. The same can happen in Strange New Worlds if the writers ever start forcing characters to fit pre-existing franchise events rather than allowing them to grow naturally. Pike's calm compassion, Spock's evolving humanity, and Lon Noonien Singh's struggle with legacy are all defining aspects of their journeys. Viewers have come to love these people because they feel real, even in a sci-fi setting. Changing who they are to fit a narrative shortcut, or worse, for shock value, would betray the foundation the show has built. Star Trek has always thrived on moral and philosophical integrity. The crew of the Enterprise doesn't just explore the galaxy. They explore what it means to be human. Maintaining that clarity of purpose will prevent Strange New Worlds from ever losing its moral compass the way Game of Thrones lost its emotional one. 3. Don't confuse spectacle with substance. When Game of Thrones began, it was about politics, people, and power, not dragons and battles. By its final season, however, the balance had tipped. Grand set pieces replaced the slow burn storytelling. The visual effects were incredible, but they couldn't mask the hollow storytelling beneath. Strange New Worlds has access to modern visual technology that rivals big-budget movies. The space battles, alien worlds, and stunning visual effects are all part of its appeal. But the heart of Star Trek has never been its spectacle. It's been its soul. The show's best episodes are the ones that blend thought-provoking ideas with deeply human moments, like Spock's emotional conflict or Uhura's search for belonging. As the show grows in scope, it must remember that bigger isn't always better. Fans don't need a galaxy-ending crisis every season. They just want to see their favorite crew tackle complex, character-driven adventures that ask hard questions about morality, science, and the future. Respect the legacy, but don't be shackled by it. Part of what doomed Game of Thrones' ending was that it lost control of its own mythology once it outpaced George R.R. Martin's source material. Strange New Worlds, on the other hand, has the opposite problem: too much established canon. The writers know exactly where this story ends, and that can be both a gift and a curse. To avoid the same creative collapse, Strange New World should use its connection to the original series as a framework, not a cage. It can play with expectations, reinterpret canon moments, and even challenge what we think we know about certain characters, as long as those choices serve the story. The show's most memorable episodes, like Those Old Scientists and Subspace Rhapsody, work precisely because they're unafraid to take risks within the established universe. 5. End with purpose, not obligation. Perhaps the greatest mistake Game of